You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is March 4th, 2026, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And today we have a special guest with us, Beth Bourne from Moms for Liberty, and she is just a ball of fire out there trying to make sure that the schools aren't unduly influencing our kids in bad directions, and we'll get into a lot of that in the show. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to the rest of the panel. In our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. Beth, you've been kind of in the news a bit lately, and I think one of the biggest things that got you in the news, let me bring this up, was a story where, you know, as you were trying to advocate for kids, you wound up actually doing a sort of a strip tease in front of the school. We're going to get into all that and more throughout the show, but I wanted to just sort of give people a flavor for what we're going to talk about, and there's going to be, you know, some kind of tough issues that we're going to cover in the show today, a little bit related to our last show, maybe with Larry Sanda, all the crazy stuff that's happening in the schools. But you know, Beth, before we always start with the Liberty quote of the day, and it's usually something related to what we're going to be talking about. And this particular quote I thought was really, on spot. It says, it's a quote from Voltaire, who is a French writer and philosopher from the 1700s who promoted liberty. And he said, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." I tell you, I think they've been making us believe a lot of absurdities lately.
Yes,
A little worried about those atrocities, might be coming. What do you guys think about this quote?
So Beth, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, this was my banner on my Facebook page for about 6 months because I think about 2 years ago, I used this quote because I was so tired of, the liberals here in Davis sort of criticizing me for speaking out. And I just think it's an incredible quote to what I'm seeing here with, gender medicine and telling boys they can be girls and girls can be boys, and that you can modify your body. And that, of course, is committing an atrocity. So, to me, it really speaks to what this whole gender industry has created. So great quote.
And there's no doubt about that, because the absurdities in what we're seeing today, especially in this gender ideology, is the absurdity that denies biology. And like you said, I totally agree that, you have this mentality that somehow or the other, that doctors can change your gender or change your biological sex. I mean, That is an absurdity beyond absurdity. And the atrocity that is being committed as a result of that absurdity is the amount of atrocities committed against our children, in terms of the drugs that they are given, in terms of the surgeries that some as young as 14, 15 years old are experiencing. I mean, this thing is really is simply child abuse for kids under 18. I mean, if an adult wants to do these sort of things, that's fine. I don't like it, but that's their business. But when you're dealing with kids, people who are not capable of making informed judgments and making these life-changing decisions about their bodies, about their minds, about their souls, their spirits, you're really and truly, this abuse is really an atrocity that has been committed against them, and we have to do something about that. So Voltaire is absolutely correct. If you could convince them of the absurdities, you could always convince them to commit atrocities, and we're seeing a lot of that against our children. I mean, if you look at some of the genocides we have seen throughout the world, throughout the ages, it's always, whatever you convince this group that this group is they are cockroaches, they are bloodsuckers, or whatever you want to do, you could convince You could convince some group of people that these people are the cause of all your problems in life, and next thing you know, well, you dehumanize them, and then the atrocities can be committed. As we've seen the Holocaust, we saw in the genocide in Rwanda. So Voltaire is absolutely correct. When you start convincing people of absurdities, the violence will come after that. And sometimes the violence will come against our children.
Well, we're going to see plenty of absurdities, I guess, in this show. But before we get going, I wanted to show people to Beth's pages in case you don't get a chance to see the whole thing and you want to find more of her stuff. You can check out Beth Bourne on X is one place you can see her stuff. You can also see her Facebook page as well, which is at Beth Youngborn. Also too, if you happen to be in the Davis area, Moms for Liberty is maybe a way to as well. Let's see here. We have this is the Moms for Liberty page right here. So for Yolo County. So
and you don't have to be a parent, and we're men, women, anyone who's concerned about parental rights and keeping our kids healthy and safe.
Yes.
And free speech, that's also a big part of it too, is just,
Well, I want to, in speaking of free speech, you gave a great demonstration, I think, in front of the school board in Davis. And so just to whet everybody's appetite for all the stuff we're going to be talking about, I wanted to kind of start with that video. So I'm going to throw that out there, and then we can, ask you some more questions and everything about all the work you're doing, in this region here. So let me click on this school board meeting where you gave it all up for liberty.
Hi, good evening. I'm a parent in the Davis Unified School District, and I'm here today to talk about the policies you have for the locker rooms in the junior high schools. So Emerson, Holmes, Harper Junior High. Right now we require our students to undress for PE class. So I'm just going to give you an idea what that looks like when I undress. So right now, this school district is saying that depending on a child's transgender identity, that they can pick which bathroom they want. So we have, right now at this school district, we have children self-identifying into different bathrooms just based off of their...
No, you cannot.
I have my bathing suit on. Excuse me, this is allowed.
We're going to recess.
I'm going to finish my comments, or you are violating my First Amendment right.
so there you go. I always love putting Schultz in the place of the government official.
I see nothing.
Yeah, but in the end, though, you were trying to make a statement. So what was the statement you were trying to make there, I guess? And I'm sure we'll get into more of it as the show goes on, but I'm just curious, I guess, to hear it from you.
So, I've been just speaking out for maybe 3.5 years now about how crazy it is that we're telling, kids here in Davis, and it's like 8% of the kids identify as some, gender identity different than a boy thinks they're a girl or non-binary. Anyways, they survey the kids, so we know the numbers are they're crazy because it doesn't exist. But anyways, it's about 8%. But I was just trying to show them how ridiculous it is that a girl should have to undress in front of a boy in her locker room, and how, you're very vulnerable when you're taking off your clothes and you're changing. And this is just an idea I had that afternoon. Like, as I'm getting ready to go to the school board, I go every 2 weeks. They hardly ever listen to me. And I just thought I would do more of a show and tell, just dress up. And so I took my son's PE uniform from when he was in junior high school, and I was just going to change into that and just show them, this is what it feels like when you're changing. And I decided, I'll wear my bathing suit and not change, into my bra, even though girls do have to put on a sports bra, right? They're like actually taking off their top. But I wanted to keep it clean, and I just didn't think it out. Like, I didn't think that they might try to stop me. And, they did. They took a recess, and, then they brought me back in, and they wouldn't tell me why they stopped it. And then, I don't know. Then it was a big discussion of, did they break the law or, violate my free speech? And it's kind of this gray area in California because there are rules on decorum, but they're not really spelled out, for our school district. And, I wasn't violating free speech, but perhaps the decorum of the school board. But I never heard from them that if I had done something wrong. So I could probably try it again next week, but I think I made my point. I did not expect it to become so, viral, right? That moment.
Well, you know what liked me about that too is that there was a case of a kid who they had a book with sort of, I guess, really material that was pushing the limits in the school library and a kid was given access to that. And so the kid and his dad read that out at a school board meeting, what was in the book at the school library that's accessible to kids, and they shut him down.
Right.
We can't hear that here. Well, you're going to expose kids, and yet you can't. Yeah, it's just nuts. So I think it was a real parallel to what you were doing there.
Yeah, right.
But, this is just a problem, though. You see, this is the hypocrisy of all of these policies. So maybe there are rules about the decorum, and maybe Beth broke the rules. I don't know if the board will so rule. But what about the decorum of little girls having to change? The teenage girls have to change their clothes in front of teenage boys. Where's the decorum there? I mean, this is ridiculous when you think about it on its face.
Yeah, it is. And, and I sometimes point out too, there's a lot of religions, Muslim, you're not supposed to be in a room, undressing in front of someone who's male. Like that's just it's not part of their faith. And yet you're forcing it in our public schools. So yeah, it's really, it makes no sense. And that was my point. And I think it did work pretty well. So
one of the questions I wanted to ask you is how did you get motivated to get into all this? Like what sort of rang your Liberty bell, I guess, with respect to what was going on and why you needed to I guess be our Paul Revere.
Yeah. Well, I think when I first started speaking out, because I knew how it had impacted my family and my daughter, she was one of the gifted, sensitive, sympathetic, quirky kids, in her class where there were 3 or 4, sometimes, half the girls within a group would be coming out with these transgender identities. And they would oftentimes be in like my daughter's very mathematical, perfect math SAT. So in these honor classrooms or maybe in theater or choir, robotics, anywhere you get really creative kids that maybe don't fit like, your cheerleader football quarterback, and so they pick these identities and they're very nice. It's a nice group of kids. And so very welcoming and accepting. But then they all, it becomes almost a special interest for them. They all start talking about different gender identities and, they learned in the classroom, there's 13 gender identities. And so they're talking about them. But that got me first, concerned. In the first maybe year I was speaking out, I wasn't even using my real name. I was Jane Doe and, I would sometimes try to disguise myself, make sure nobody knew who I was or what I was talking about, because I was so worried that I would lose my friend group or, it would impact my work or my daughter would find out. And sure enough, it did, right? Basically, they came after my job. I lost all my liberal friends, but that's okay. But then the more I started speaking out, the more I realized there's so many other people who agree with me. And we also have the First Amendment on our side. And so the real turning point was when we did this event on fair sports for girls. And I hosted it at the Davis Library. And I said it was open to the public. Moms for Liberty was the main host, but I brought in, 4 different women to talk about this issue. And the room was filled and all the trans activists showed up. And the librarian said to us before it started, we just want to let you know that if you misgender anybody, as you're talking about this issue, that, we're going to shut the event down. And I said, well, no, you can't do that. I said, if we're going to be talking about I think I said Leah Thomas, right? William Thomas, a swimmer. We're not going to refer to him as a woman or a trans woman because he's male. And so he disagreed with me. I got Kim Jones on the phone. She's a very well-known sort of women's sports advocate. And she said, no, the federal law says that you have the free speech to use whatever words you want when you're in that library. And so, he again warned us as we started talking, and there were actually 3 attorneys in the room, and they all told him, we have our free speech to refer to, a male athlete using he, him pronouns because he's male. And so he ended up shutting down our event. And he said, you misgendered, trans women are women, and we're shutting down this event. And, that same night, I think I got a call from Harmeet Dillon, who's now our Assistant Attorney General for the, U.S. Department of Justice. And then I got a call from, or email from Alliance Defending Freedom. And they took the lawsuit on pro bono. And we ended up winning. The Yolo County settled for $70,000 because it was so clear they violated our free speech. And we had it all on video. So that's the other lesson I learned, is always keep your camera going. So, but that made me really understand that not, if you can't talk about what's happening because people are trying to censor you, then you're violating your First Amendment right of speech. So that's critical when you're talking on gender ideology. So to kind of know the laws around, recording, where you can assemble, what speech you can use, and how lucky we are to be in America. So,
Yes.
That is one thing I've noticed. And by the way, for those of you who are watching, at Beth's pages there that we talked about, her Facebook and her X page, she has all of these videos of confrontations she's had with the schools and some of the people at them. And how important is it then? You talk about having that camera rolling. I mean, I guess if you were just to tell people this stuff, nobody would believe you. I'm guessing. Right?
Right. Yeah. I think before I would speak in abstract terms, hey, my daughter's learning about this at school, or did you know that, Health Connected, who teaches a curriculum, this is what they say. And then I started to realize, oh, wait a second, a 2-minute clip or a screenshot. And the person who really influences me a lot is Chaya Rychek. She's the one who does the libs of TikTok. She's got this account with almost 5 million followers, but she will take, any kind of evidence or what you see in your public agencies. She's, it usually has to be related to something in the school or in our government, or, where they're trying to introduce some kind of indoctrination or some, crazy left idea. And so I think I just kind of follow her example, and she shares a lot of my stuff. And so she's been sharing stuff about the Davis Unified School District now for 3 years for me, and it's been great. Yeah. So
well, we're definitely going to show some video from some of the things that you've done there. But I guess while we're still on public access, I guess I did want to share just a little bit more about Moms for Liberty, because in case anybody is curious about that organization while we're still on the air with them, I'm going to show a video of theirs, sort of an introductory video, and I've edited it down just a little bit. But I think it sort of gives the flavor, and then you can sort of expand upon it, I guess, of what that meant for you and being involved with that. So let me show the video real quick here.
Math and reading scores have dropped to their lowest levels in more than 2 decades among high school seniors.
It is leaving books with pornographic descriptions still available to kids.
Loudoun County Public Schools is suspending 2 boys who expressed their discomfort that a female student who identifies as a boy was using the boys' locker room.
This girl reportedly suffered head and neck injuries because this guy jumped 10 feet in the air, all muscle, and spiked the ball 600 miles an hour into her head.
President Biden is expanding some protections in Title IX that will impact schools across the country.
The revisions announced earlier this month add in protections for transgender athletes.
Groups are not taking the changes lying down. One of them is Moms for Liberty, who's suing the Biden administration.
We actually sued the Biden administration, and we won a federal injunction.
The suburban mom that won Trump the election.
What we did, and
yeah,
we did it in 4 swing states: Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. We sent them texts, we handwrote postcards, thousands and thousands of handwritten postcards, knocking doors, all those things. Long story short, in those 4 states, we turned out an average of 93%.
Wherever I go, odds are there is a Moms for Liberty group or a whole tribe in the room sounding off.
Moms for Liberty has grown to more than 320 chapters nationwide. All year long, national and chapter members led town halls, workshops, and events. Over 500 school board members now serve after receiving Moms for Liberty training, support, and funding. We've advanced common sense parental rights policies through our grassroots network, even in states that don't always welcome us.
When school districts force ideological instruction without the ability to opt out, they are not educating, they are indoctrinating.
The case went all the way to the Supreme Court in June, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of our moms and other parents that they had the right to opt their children out of some of these extreme books.
In school board races, PTA meetings, and town halls across the nation, you have taught the radical left Marxists and communists a lesson they will never forget. Don't mess with America's moms.
So there you have it. Don't mess with the moms, and you're one of the leaders of those moms.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your experience, I guess, in doing this, and how important it was to be a part of this group at some point in this activism that you've developed.
Sure. I actually was at the summit when President Trump came in and met with us. I think it was maybe 4 months before the election, but it was just so fun to be in a smaller room at a hotel ballroom and have him speak to us. And he was just really personable and funny. But I was so excited to join Moms for Liberty because I had reached out to every group I could think of in Davis, the League of Women Voters, this Women's Seroptimist group, these different groups to say, could you help me host a forum on this issue that's really impacting our students here in Davis. I'd like to talk about this issue, and then also the girls' sports issue. And not a single group would have anything to do with me. And then I just got kind of like, what other groups are out there? And so I learned about Moms for Liberty. And as soon as I contacted the women, they were mostly in Clarksburg and West Sacramento, rural Yolo County. They were just the most lovely women. And they had gotten really involved with Moms for Liberty because of the school shutdowns and the COVID, mandates. And so they were really fighting to get the public schools back open. And then some other, issues. So they didn't know a lot about this gender indoctrination. And so but they were so welcoming, and they let me kind of lead the first meeting where we talked about it. And then they let me, host a few events, and they came and supported me. We did a Brave Book story hour. Someone had this interest of Kirk Cameron. He writes, more Christian books, which you don't see in the library. So we hosted an event like that. And the library, of course, wanted to do a drag queen story hour, the same day to kind of like balance it out, I guess. Or they really tried to actually not even allow us to have the Brave Book story hour, but we did that. So what I really too like about Moms for Liberty is that they allow, it's a national group, but then within each state, each county can have their own chapter. And it's up to that chapter to decide really what you want to focus on, as long as it has to do with parental rights and, the schools or agencies related to caring for children. And, we have meetings, we have forums. I think there's 14 counties in California, right, that have them. And the chapter chairs, we have a really good network of supporting each other, and issues in Los Angeles might be different than what we see, in San Luis Obispo, but some of them, they're statewide, boys and girls locker rooms, teachers keeping secrets with students without telling parents about, gender support plans. None of us want to see tampons in the boys' bathrooms. A lot of some of these crazy bills that come across our California legislature that take away parents' rights to, we together will go there.
Well, it is funny that you mentioned the tampons in the boys' bathroom.
Yes.
I never thought I'd see a day when Minnesota was more left deranged than California.
Yeah, I know. I had no idea that Minnesota is very similar to California in that way until recently. Yeah. That really woke me up. And then I started to realize pretty much any state that has a Democrat governor and a Democrat majority, you're going to have this issue in the schools because you're going to have teachers unions that are captured, and the money is going to support one ideology. But I just wanted to real kind of disclaimer here that my work, a lot of what I do is just as an individual, and Moms for Liberty allows that, that you can have your own life outside of being involved with a chapter, and that, I'm oftentimes just using my own voice. And so I'm not speaking as the representative of the chapter at that moment. I'm just speaking as an individual, as concerned mom. And so a lot of my videos, maybe, they would not be standard Moms for Liberty type, activism, but I think, for many of them, I do appreciate how passionate I am about this topic, and that my heart and my intentions are always good.
But you are associated with Moms for Liberty, and not, even though you are speaking to us as an individual, but you are associated with Moms for Liberty, aren't you not?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's I guess it's one of those things where there's always an organization is going to be, because I see that with TPUSA. My daughter has a relationship with TPUSA, and they are very controlling of the direction. So like if somebody wants to go out and say something, it has to get approved. And it sounds like, Beth, that you have a lot of energy and ideas.
Right. Yes. And it's easier to not always go and say, hey, can I get the approval and use the logo? Instead I'm going to do, and I think for Turning Point USA, we had a student recently who helped us out at the junior college up in Folsom, at Folsom Lakes Junior College. And he spoke out on the boy playing on the Santa Rosa girls women's volleyball team, but he was a Turning Point USA club member. But he said, I can't come here representing the club. I'm just coming as an individual. And so like that, he knew that.
Sorry, I got to jump in real quick. So if you're watching this on public access, this is all the time we have for you here, but the conversation will continue online. So go check us out at knuckleheadsofliberty.com if you want to catch the entire conversation. And we're going to talk about Beth's visit to the Democrat convention and some of the other activism she's done locally as well. So anyways, back to the show. So sorry, Beth, I cut you off there.
Oh, no, that's okay. But yeah, like Turning Point USA, the students, they might do some activism on their own. So they're not always representing the club itself. Yeah. But a great club,
Well, I did want to show some videos real quick of some of your activism with the city council still, because these are things that anybody can do, right? I mean, if you are, in your local community, if you think there's something wrong, this is, maybe Beth's showing you a way here where you can be involved too. And I did want to mention too that when we're talking about this subject with the courts, the Supreme Court has kind of just come down our side here.
Yes, they have.
Yes, stopping the schools from hiding this information from parents. So, but let's jump to some video of some of the things that you've uncovered of kind of things that most people don't even know that's happening in the school. So here you're talking about this issue of breast minders and the idea that the school is just sort of handing these out and maybe not telling the parents. So here's a video of that.
Good morning. My name is Beth Bourne. Don't worry, I won't be stripping my clothes off this morning. I'm here to voice my concerns that the Yolo County Board of Supervisors is knowingly using taxpayer funds to groom and program children to believe they could be born in the wrong body. I stood before you last year. I addressed the board on the $100,000 contract that you approved for Communicare to be the gender affirming clinicians at the Harper Junior High School Wellness Center. Right in the contract language, it stated that children could be meeting free, confidentially, with CommuniCare clinicians at the school. I've also shared this flyer with you. It says right here that children 12 and over in Yolo County can get free breast binders and penis tucking kits for any child over 12. Why are we using taxpayer funds to purchase these breast binders? And I'm just going to put one on in case people in the audience are not familiar with what children are receiving in this county. If you're over 12 years old, you can have a free breast binder. And just to give you an idea what this looks like when you put it on a child, a 12-year-old girl can get a free breast binder through CommuniCare, through this board, to flatten her breasts so she can pretend to be a trans boy. Why would you want to lie to children? Why would you want taxpayer funds going to these kinds of garments for our children? It's time for you to have some courage, to be brave and speak out. We have an unfolding medical scandal, and you five are the ones supporting it.
So I edited that one down just a little bit. Then there's another talk that you had. I'm not even sure if it was the same day or a different day, because it looks like you had the same breast binder. But you're talking about this tuck kit for boys, which I think is alarming. But let me play that, because you're saying that in this there's even a medical problem with them handing these out to kids. But let me play this real quick so we can see what you said.
I want to talk to you about the free penis tucking kits that are available to boys here in Davis, 12 and over. Right here it says free penis tucking kits from CommuniCare, which are on our Davis school campuses. President Denuzio, I don't know if you've seen a penis tucking kit and how it works. It actually looks like this. It has a camel toe. You can see this. This is what boys are wearing right now at Davis High School, junior high school, that want to mimic a girl. Part of the penis tucking kit includes this right here. If you haven't seen this, I encourage you. You can order it from CommuniCare. It's free. It'll get delivered to your house. But what a penis tucking kit looks like, it has this almost like a bandage, and the boy will put it here on his body, in his crotch, and it shows you right on the back how you take your testicles and you stick them into your groin, and you use this tape, and then you take your penis and you wrap it around the back. Then after this is on your body, you put back on this, which has the camel toe. Right on this packaging, it says that these are not really for children under 18 because it can lead to sterility, having your penis tucked that way, reducing the sperm production. So I guess my question for you is, why are you giving these to children for free? Why are students at Davis schools meeting in private with CommuniCare clinicians? Why do you want to see children harmed? I mean, what is it in it for you? Why are you lying to children?
Yeah, it's just shocking.
It's hard for me to watch. Like, what did I say? Yeah.
It's the this goes back to our original quote here. If you can convince people of absurdities, what could you convince them to do as a result of those absurdities that you have now convinced them of?
Yes.
And we are now having these children wearing these penis tucking things, which is committing an atrocity upon their bodies. And the thing that is really disturbing about all of this is that what are parents are, in some cases, are allowing this to happen. Parents are taking these kids to get these drugs and all these sort of things, these surgery in some cases. What are the parents doing? What are they thinking? That you could have a boy who is a girl and a girl who's a boy. God have made us, or nature, or whoever you believe in, have made us in a certain way, and you can have a man correct it or a woman correct it, supposedly correct it. I mean, this is beyond absurd. And if we could be convinced of the absurdity, God knows where we can go after that.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to kind of show too, and we've shown this video before on our show, but there was a mom in Maine named Amber Levine, and she's being represented now by the Goldwater Institute and is suing the school district there. But her story is so feels so genuine. The surprise that she felt when she found out these conversations were happening behind her back with her child at the school, and the redress that she felt like she needed. Let me just show this. Is a fairly short video. It's less than a minute, but I think it really kind of gets to the point of why maybe this is so important what Beth is doing here. So let me show this.
Just always been able to come to me and talk to me about things. At the end of her 7th grade year, she began talking with a school social worker, but they did transfer her to this other social worker who I had never met, and he never reached out to me to tell me that he was going to be working with my kiddo. And it just, everything about it felt like the goal was to remove me from any sort of conversation surrounding my daughter's mental health. One day, family affair, we were cleaning my daughter's bedroom and we discovered a breast binder in her bedroom. And so I had a conversation with her and asked her where it came from. She finally came out and told me that the school had given it to her, and more precisely, the school social worker. It hurt as a mom to know that she was keeping a secret, but I think it hurt even more to know that adults were encouraging her to keep these secrets. It really makes you wonder what other things are occurring in your schools. It really makes you question everything.
And we had edited that down. That was from a slightly longer story, but just sort of the high points of it. But you can find the whole video at the Goldwater Institute's webpage. But Beth, does that sort of ring true for you as far as what you're seeing here in California?
Yeah, and I think every parent, if you're, listening, you really have to go to your school, just walk into the front office and ask them, hey, can I see the wellness center, or can I see, what mental health services you're providing to students on campus, or can I talk to the school nurse? I just want to understand, because, if it's mental health and the child's over 12, they can tell the school, oh, yes, let my parent know, or no, I don't think my parent should know. I'd like to keep this just at school. So if a child's over 12, so what's that, 6th, 7th grade, they get to decide if the parent should know that they're, meeting with a mental health person at school. And, like here in Davis, and I'm sure many schools across Sacramento region or anywhere, you could have, we have Communicare here in our schools. It's a federally community clinic. And, I think they originally said, well, it's great because then kids can come in and get information on sexual reproductive health, right? They can get their condoms and their, I don't know what else, contraception or, safer sex, which still I question, right? A 12-year-old getting this kind of information without their parents knowing. But,
Yes.
But now they also have these clinicians, and I have it from a public records request, and a big article was written about this. But it's also Planned Parenthood is in a lot of public schools too, where they have a Planned Parenthood office right on the campus of a public school. But in Davis, they have Communicare at the junior high school and at the high school. And it's, 3 clinicians. I don't know what shifts they work. And there's a little sign on the door saying, come on in. You don't need an appointment. And there's a little trans, gender progressive flag on the front saying you're welcome in here. And then when you come in, here, let me just grab this. I'm sorry. I got to do this.
By the way, too, if you're watching, I think Beth has one of these videos on her webpage as well, of her going into one of these school clinics, I guess they're called, and asking them.
Yeah. So I do that too. But yeah, so this is Communicare is the one here in Davis. But, this little brochure, it tells kids where to go onto their Instagram page. And on the Instagram page, it talks about, how you can get your binders or your, they sometimes do free makeup, so boys can learn how to do makeup like girls. But, right here, it says, these are the things that we offer you for free. And it does include the gender affirming clothing, the binders here, gender affirming supplies and care referral, and a lot of one-on-one support, meet with a mentor. So, somebody else who's transgender, who's going to meet with your child, and it's all confidential and it's all free. And, this is at the schools, right? They're giving this information out. So, while they're not giving out the hormones at the school, they're letting children know where you can go, in town to start talking about how do I get on these hormones. And, they'll need their parents' permission, but at this point, they've already been given the free binders. They've already been meeting with, a mentor to talk about their, transformation into a new gender. So it just, the more you look into it, the darker it gets. And when you say something to parents about this, they're like, well, maybe some parents aren't safe, so we need to have someone at the schools who can talk to kids about this, because they just make all these excuses, and there's no reason to ever have the schools getting in between the relationship between a parent and a child. There just isn't.
Exactly.
If a parent's not safe, you call Child Protection Service. You don't tell the child, oh, well, that's okay, we'll just we'll help you here at school.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. I mean, a lot of these people who are on the left, if they thought the government person at the school were Donald Trump, they'd immediately get it. They'd say, oh my God, I can't leave this in the school's hands. But
Right. Or if they were giving out Bibles, if they were giving out free Bibles at schools, do you know how angry the parents would be?
Yeah.
But free breast binders, well, that's okay.
But
the whole thing about all of these things is that they're not in the public schools, in most of them they're not teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, at least they're doing a very lousy job of teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. But they think they are capable. They can't do the job that our tax dollars are paying them to do, but they think they are quite capable of guiding our kids through this physiological and psychological transition. These people who are incompetent at the core of their job think they are at the same time think they are quite competent in leading our children down this dark alley of transgender ideology. God help us.
And Leon, you talked since you brought it up, how the schools are doing in what they're supposed to be teaching. Right? This is the real scandal here. I mean, this is a scandal that they're teaching all this other stuff that they have no business teaching, but that they're doing so poorly on the things that they've been chartered to teach. And
yes.
This is the crazy thing. We talked about this with Larry Sand on the show the other day, but here's mathematics for the Los Angeles City Unified, and they're at 18% at or above proficiency. So that means that literally 82% are below proficiency. I mean, that's nuts, right? I mean, this is a horrible track record, right? And for reading, it's just a tiny bit better. It's 22% down here, right? They have some level to make themselves feel better called at or above basic. I have no idea what that is, but I know if you're hiring somebody for a job, you want them to be proficient. So I'm not even going to get into whatever this runner-up prize is called basic. But it's just nuts. And even if you look at basic, it's horrifying. It's not even 50%. And
Really?
That's just LA Unified. We were looking at as well at even the Fresno School District here in California. They're worse. I mean, it's 11% proficiency. You know what I mean? Maybe they're math challenged and don't know that that's bad. I don't know. I'm not sure.
You can't do well, Jason. They can't do math. So how you expect him to know better, huh? But there is something here that we don't talk about enough. I think is that the Medical Association, and I think Beth had raised it in one of her videos, the American Medical Association and all the doctors involved in this gender affirming care. This have to be one of the biggest scandals going on in America today, and nobody's really addressing it. One of the first things that a doctor has to do is, at least one of their mandates, is to do no harm. And you cannot tell me this whole gender ideology is not harmful to our children. I mean, we know gender dysphoria, which is a real thing. Gender dysphoria is a psychological disorder, and yet we have trained medical doctors telling parents and telling their children that they could make changes physiologically and will cure the psychological problem. This is the only condition in medical history that is psychological in nature, that is being cured, by through physiological means. This has to be one of the greatest scandals ongoing right now in America, and we don't talk about it enough.
What's terrible is, I mean, as Beth indicated before, this is a very much a blue state problem. so Beth visited the belly of the beast recently and going to the Democrat convention. And so we pieced together a few video snippets that she had and edited out a few things just so we could, piece together something that was about 2 minutes long. But I think this is kind of informative of maybe why we're seeing what we see in the schools here. So I'm going to show this real quick video from the Democrat convention. And Beth, was this in California or was this?
It was just last week in San Francisco at the Moscone Center, and I just decided to drive over there and come on in.
Okay.
Yes. It was open to the public, the portion that I'm in, so that's why I could be there with my signs.
Well, we're going to see how welcoming they were to you. So
oh yeah.
Tell her.
Hi.
Hey,
Good.
Have you signed our petition yet?
No, what's it about?
Prop 55. Let her talk.
What's that?
No, it's not about it. This is to make permanent the tax to the rich for K-12 funding and healthcare.
We originally passed it in 2012, and it's been reauthorized a couple times. That this one will make it permanent, so we don't have to keep reauthorizing it. It only affects people's taxes if you earn over $700,000 a year.
Well, I'm actually trying to shut down the public schools in California. They told my daughter that she could become a trans boy when she was in only 6th grade. So in the public schools, they teach gender identities.
Actually, that's not true. I'm a public school teacher. That's absolutely not true.
It's California Department of Education.
Yeah.
It's
in the frameworks.
It's required curriculum. It's
well, they do the sex ed class.
Right, and they use a gender unit called Puberty Talk or Teen Talk, and they teach kids that there's 13 gender identities. They could be transgender or non-binary.
Yeah.
That's part of the curriculum in California.
Okay.
Do you think that could be confusing for a child?
I'm sure it's very confusing, but I have two non-binary granddaughters, so and they chose that when they were little. I mean, one of them chose to be identified herself as non-binary when she was 6. So
how would she have heard?
I'm not consenting to be recorded.
How would she have learned that she was non-binary?
Recording me?
Yes.
She is.
As a 6-year-old. Are you worried your granddaughters might want to have nullification surgery? The California Teachers Association is lying to children. Okay. California Teachers Association is lying to children. They secretly socially transition children. So why do you guys want to see gay boys grow up to be trans women and have their penises amputated and be sterilized?
As a gay boy?
Yeah. You got to grow up to be a gay man. Why do you think that Jazz Jennings should have had his penis amputated?
The plot is that you can grow up to be whatever you like.
I can grow. Excuse me.
This is a private space.
It is not a private space. It is not a private space. He told me I could be in here. He said I was allowed to be in here. Done nothing wrong.
Unfortunately, we've received numerous complaints about your aggressive filming and questioning and actually bumping into people as you're talking to them.
Okay.
So we're going to have to ask you to leave the premises.
Sure, I'm fine. Okay, will you guys walk me down? I didn't do anything wrong, and I have it all recorded, but I'll leave. I just want everyone to see how many police officers are here.
So they summoned a battalion, it looks like, to keep you from questioning the teachers association.
Right. Aggressive videotaping. I have never heard that one before.
Aggressive videotaping. Imagine that. There's something called aggressive videotaping. But the thing that you should notice here, is that these are the most tolerant people on the planet. Okay? They're very tolerant as long as you agree with them. They're very tolerant as long as you speak their damn nonsense. They're very, very tolerant. These are the most tolerant people on the planet. And look at how they treat someone who have a disagreement with them. I'm sorry, Beth. Go ahead, please.
Oh, that was great.
Well, you know what? Yeah. One thing I noticed too is that they accused you of essentially bumping into people, and you could see in the video they're the ones who constantly, where they try and block people's paths and force you to leave essentially by pushing you out, and then they claim you're the one bumping into them, right? Which is nuts.
Yes. I'm so careful not to ever bump anybody or touch anyone or do anything that could be any kind of harassment or anything that could get me in trouble. So I know I was very, very, very careful, and that's why I keep my video going. But yeah, when they asked me to leave at that point, I had done 45 minutes or an hour of video, so I was sort of ready to go. So, but I was still like, I didn't do anything wrong, but I will leave.
One of the crazy things is you have another snippet of video that we're going to show from, I believe it's from the same event, and at this, they were calling the police on you, which is nuts because you should have been the one calling the police on them. And I'm going to show this little video that's going viral now, and it's it shows that safety is a real concern for people who are speaking up. So here we go.
Kaiser Permanente told my daughter that she should go on puberty blockers and hormones when she was 13. And I told my daughter that's not possible, that you'll never become a man. And she grew up to be a multiple woman. She's 20 years old now. Do you know any transgender children? I do. Yeah? Do you have a transgender child? I do. And how did they know they were transgender? Because that's something a person knows inside them. Yeah? At what age did you know that you were a cis woman? At what age? That's something I really thought about. Oh, and why did your child think they're transgender? Maybe I'm not going to answer your questions anymore. I'm just going to stand here silently next to you, okay? Kaiser Permanente charges a $100 copay, and the surgeon makes $25,000. I was approved for a phalloplasty with 2 appointments in Brazil. My doctor told me I could have a fake penis that would allow me to either be standing up or to have penetrative sex, but not both. Do you think your transgender child might one day have top surgery and a phalloplasty? Is that something you would allow them to have? They make a phalloplasty out of the skin tissue on your thigh or your forearm. It's like a skin sausage. It's a fake penis. $130,000. I'm gonna hunt you down and fucking kill you. But you can't say that. You can't tell somebody you're gonna kill them. You can't say that to somebody.
So, I don't know what else you can do other than to speak the truth at these places. Otherwise, there's no way you can reach anybody. And then they get that, like as Leon said, the tolerant left suddenly says they're going to kill you.
I know. I know.
They're very tolerant. They're very tolerant.
And I think you did the first video, and that's why I've been sort of trying to show the whole clip. But I mean, that was a fantastic part. But the first clip, she says, I'm going to get out of the line, because she's in the line to go through security, through the, I think, metal detector. She goes, I'm going to get out of the line because I want to, what was the word she used? She wants to be next to me to like balance out my hatred or something like that. So she gets out of the line to come stand next to me. So she wants to be next to me to prove a point that she is, more righteous with her sign that says, all patients deserve protection or something like that, and it was all about youth gender medicine. And and so when I asked her just questions, I'm just asking questions. I'm sharing, my experience with Kaiser Permanente, and she eventually just couldn't take it anymore. And and she, I had my phone right there, so she knew I was recording. I just think she didn't realize that even though she was whispering in my ear, she was also whispering into the telephone. So, and there was a police officer 2 feet behind me, and so he was immediately able to take that recording. So, we've made a police report. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. And here is this is Andy No. He's a kind of a pretty famous reporter who's been exposing Antifa and some of the terrible tactics they use from the left on. I mean, Andy No was really beaten badly. I think it was
badly. He had brain damage out of that.
Remember, but he wrote this one up after seeing your video, and a lot of people have seen your video and they've identified the woman, and she works for UCSF. So, I mean, these people are in our government, and they're making decisions that impact us all, and it's just. It's a little bit scary. I guess part of that.
Right. Right. Yeah, you can see why you're not going to. I mean, I worked at the University of California, Davis, and I was very quiet with my views. I didn't say a word, in the office. In my personal life, I did, but not a word in the office for, 5-6 years, nothing. You can't have a diverse viewpoint on that topic. There's the party line that the university follows. and you can see just how angry somebody would get, your coworker, if you had a different view. Yeah, it's
well, these tolerant people believe in diversity, except their diversity means you have to toe the party line, and you shall have no diversity of point of view. That is their kind of diversity. But yet they love to tell us about their tolerance and their love of diversity. They love to tell us about it.
Yeah, and sadly, in a place like California, that has such big government, such big intrusive government, so many of those employees are going to tend to be, Democrats and maybe extreme Democrats in some cases. And certainly me and Leon have had our experiences with that. So, but Beth, it sounds like you've had your own struggles with that. And I did want to ask you, how has this impact you? You talked about how you lost a lot of friends in your community for speaking up. I mean, how hard has this been on you? This having this happen. I mean, what's the cost been for you?
There is a lot of cost, right? I was put on investigatory leave for 8 months at UC Davis for my speech, and so I had representation from Hermit Dillon's law firm here in San Francisco, Dillon Law Group.
Yeah,
right. Yes. Yeah.
But no, I'm totally with you on this.
Yeah. So it was expensive to defend myself, and of course they found no workplace misconduct, and they gave me this little slap on the wrist for I don't know what. They're not clear on what it was, but I did get a 2-week suspension, and I had to watch a sexual harassment video, right? And then I came back to work.
Sexual harassment video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I'm the one being sexually harassed when I have to pretend that a male is allowed in my bathroom at work. But okay. But then they did lay me off. They said that when President Trump's Department of Transportation, they canceled one of the big contracts because it was kind of woke research. But they used that as an excuse to lay me off. And I personally feel like it wasn't fair because I had seniority and, but we're looking into that. I still have, some records that I'm requesting from the university. But let's see. Oh, and so the other thing I would say is, I did lose all my liberal friends. I think it was hard for them to just realize that this was so important to me that I wasn't going to change my viewpoint on this. I didn't care if all 20 women in my friend group believed, that Trump is the devil and, that this trans stuff is real. But I've just
one thing I had to say though is what could be more important than your relationship with your own child. And if you have concerns about this, the idea that some people would choose their 20 friends over their own child.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I am estranged from my daughter, and I knew that would be one of the consequences of becoming such an activist. But I also realized that I think some time in the near future, I'm hoping she'll realize that I knew really how horrific this nightmare is for kids like her, and she's lucky she was never medicalized. And I think she'll realize when her friends, start to have regret because they have lost their breasts or they have, taken the testosterone and grown beards and, maybe sterile now. She'll realize that I was actually doing this because I love her. And I also love all these other, kids that have gotten caught in this, these trans identities. And I just want it to end. And I thought it would end like 2 years ago. And then I thought oh, everyone's going to see it, right? When Leah Thomas, a man, is winning the women's Ivy League, NCAA championship, everyone's going to see it. And they didn't. Or, when we see that Tremaine Carroll is raped 2 women in the California prisons, a male, I mean, he looks like Leon, right? He's not even trying to shave. He just says he's a woman. That's
Leon, I didn't know you were that feminine.
I'm telling you, man. No, I'm just scared for myself.
No, but he does. He has a beard. He's a man, and he says, I'm female. Anyways, like that's gonna wake people up. But when I tell my friends that, my former friends, they're like, well, correction officers, they also rape women, and you don't care about that, or it's just a few women that are getting raped, or it's just so crazy. So. But I have the integrity of knowing that I'm doing the best I can. So I know I sleep better than I did when I had all these friends, right?
Well, one thing you mentioned, and I had a video that was going to touch on it, but I don't think we'll wind up having enough time to get to all these today. But in the end of the video, you hit the guy at the school and you say, how do you feel about 6 girls so far in the school district having had their breasts amputated?
Yeah.
And I guess, we've been told constantly that high schoolers are not having these surgeries on them. I mean, how are you finding out about this? Because the school certainly isn't making it available.
Right. So, like I said, because my daughter, she's like in that first cohort of girls where it was part of everything, their health class, their science class, the flags in the classroom, the GSA clubs. So I just got to watch her friends, get into this and become medicalized. And some of these girls would either be, in the theater group, so I could see, in their performance clothing that they had the surgery, or they would speak about it at a school board meeting, or a couple girls, they actually would put it on their social media. I'm so thankful I've had my top surgery. It saved my life. They put it in their social media. And so like, I know it because I have it in front of my eyes. And when I say to people, they're like, well, it's none of your business, or why are you looking at their social media? And my question is, why are you not looking at it? Right. I mean, this is so absurd, right? That we would have girls right here in our town, these young girls that we saw when they were growing up, they were, quirky, or they're very tomboyish. And then all of a sudden, instead of growing up to be a tomboy lesbian or whatever, you're just a tomboy. I'm a tomboy. They decide that they're going to become a trans man. And these are the same women that were against Chinese foot binding, and they were against female genital mutilation, and all these like other things that they were against. And now it's like, oh, well, foot binding, that was terrible, but breast binding, that's fine. It's like, So, and last night I spoke in Elk Grove at their school board meeting, and I had Layla Jane with me. She's become a friend. She's 21 years old, and she had her breast removed at Kaiser when she was only 13. And so she spoke to the school board last night. So, I'm standing next to this young woman who, 12 years old, she was put on testosterone. 13, she had top surgery. And so, Kaiser Permanente, they don't have a minimum age. So there's plenty of girls around this area who at 13, 14 years old, this happened. And my daughter's pediatrician really encouraged us to take her to that same pediatric gender clinic in Oakland. I've been speaking out with the Federal Trade Commission and meeting with their investigators, the attorneys who are working on the investigation into this. And so I can share all my records with them. So it's great to know that our Federal Trade Commission and our Department of Justice, they're taking this very seriously. This is medical, malpractice, consumer fraud, just lying to parents. Yeah, they're, if your doctor says to you, and which the doctor told me, the endocrinologist, we think this will reduce suicide ideation if you put your daughter on testosterone. Well, that's consumer fraud, right? You don't have any evidence that it's going to save her life. And you're pressuring me to do something.
Well, and Beth, one thing that it just happened recently, and we talked about it on the show a few weeks ago, but the first civil decision came out against some of these doctors, and that's actually kind of put the brakes on, I think, Kaiser and some of these other medical institutions are starting to use a little more caution now, I think is the best way to say it. I don't think they've said they will stop altogether, but they have temporarily at least put a stop to it because they see the liability that if all of these people come back and can sue them and win later on, this is a big deal. So,
yeah. I think right now, yes. Yes, Stanford Children's Hospital, Rady's, Kaiser, they don't want to lose the federal funding either from the government. But, we still have Dignity Health. We still have the UC Med Center. And also all the private practice surgeons that are willing to do this. So it's still a long ways to go.
Well, Beth, we're going to
I just hope and pray that we have a multitude of lawsuits against these outrageous doctors and all of these medical practitioners who are encouraging this malpractice against our children. I hope we sue them into non-existence, into oblivion. That's all I hope and pray for.
Well, Beth, one of the things I wanted to share with the audience too, and we're going to lose Leon pretty quick here, so I wanted to get through these pretty fast, but is that your work isn't just on the trans stuff. I mean, you've been coming out there and saying, why are these school districts sending the kids out in all of these protests recently? And we do have a video of you performing at one of these, going there to ask the principal, why are you doing this? And I think it's kind of illustrative of how little they want to talk about what they're doing, whether it be trans or, using the kids as some kind of political props. So let me show this video, and then maybe you could just explain a little bit more about it, I guess, once. And I edited it down just a little bit again, like some of the others. So here we go.
Hi, Principal. Can you tell me, are all these kids excused from missing school today?
Keep on walking.
Excuse me, did all these children get...
No comment, Beth.
No comment? Hey, how'd you know my name? How did you know my name? Do you think this is a good use of school class time? Why are the winter schools only performing at 18% proficiency for math? Is this really a good use of class time? Why are only 18% of students proficient in math at your school? Principal, can you tell me why 4% of the students...
I gotta make sure kids are safe.
Oh, is this keeping students safe? Yeah? Why are 4% of the students at your middle school identifying as transgender? Why is that? Why are you allowing the teachers at your middle school to secretly socially transition children at your school without notifying the parents?
Kids, stay inside, please.
Have you organized any other protests? Why are you okay with trying to make little activists out of these students?
And again, they won't give you a single answer on any of these things. They're just doing it.
Yeah, I think the math was actually 13%, and I said 18%, so I was being generous there.
Very, yes.
I'm amazed he didn't smile at you. Wow, I didn't know you were that good.
I actually feel bad for that principal. I was just so mad at my son's principal at Davis High School because he didn't notify me when the students were all going on strike on their student walkout, and I think it's because he didn't want me there. So he didn't notify anybody in the school that 800 kids or whatever were going to miss 7th period class to go on their walkout. It's insane. If they were walking out because they love ice, do you think they would have got to get that same kind of treatment?
Really? Exactly.
Yeah. And this was something I would have shown the video that went to this, but this goes exactly to what you're saying. They're not even telling the kids. Here was, or the parents of the kids, they're just using them as props. And this was a case of a special needs kid who just got left out on the street. And he was wandering around until his mom came and found him on a busy intersection. And, it's absolutely nuts that, this kind of thing. And, they specifically said this kid has special needs. He doesn't know why he's out there. Right. I mean, he's
right. Exactly.
Because they told him to go, because they said he saw his friends go. So he walked out too. And then they just left him out there, and the school tried to act like, oh yeah, we had a perimeter and stuff. Well, apparently not.
Right.
Not.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But yeah, we kind of talked, a lot about the ICE thing in the last show. We were doing, and I would have loved to have gotten a little more, because I see some of what you're doing here as coinciding with a lot of that. But I guess as we start to get ready to close out, because we're running up on time, but this last video I want to show, and it's one that shows a little bit of how things can go at the school and how hostile some of these things can get. So I wanted to show a little bit of what you're confronting there as we get ready to close out here. So here we go.
Keep walking. Keep walking.
What's your badge number?
551.
What's your name again?
Keep walking. Keep walking.
RNE?
Keep walking.
No, you hit my niece. You hit her in the fucking face, you bitch.
We're handling it.
You hit her in the fucking face with your elbow, you stupid bitch. With my elbow. You don't hit kids.
Keep walking.
You don't hit kids.
Keep walking.
Okay, why are you provoking them then?
I'm
not provoking. Yes, you are. Then why the fuck are you over here?
Really? Let's see what happened earlier that day.
Can you get the police closer to me? Rodney, they're trying to steal my sign. Get the police closer. Get the police closer. Can you get the police closer to me? Can you get the police? Get the police closer. Give me my sign. Give me. Give me my sign. Give me my sign. Give me my sign. Get out. I'll ask for you. I'll ask for you. That's it. Leave her alone.
Okay, so clearly this lady in black has a twisted sense of reality.
Town. Okay, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck then. I voted for Trump. Okay, I don't care. Okay.
Keep walking.
You coming out here and provoking these kids while you're doing a peaceful protest? I was peaceful. Provoking them. I was peacefully protesting. No. I was holding my sign. I don't care. That's provoking. He's right. That's provoking, especially for kids underage. So that's creepy and that's weird, bitch. Why is it creepy and weird? Because it is. Why can't they hear that some people voted for Trump? Why can't they hear that message? Because that's weird as fuck. No, Trump wants to You're crazy, you're stupid.
As with most demented leftists, she's telling Beth that if you have a view that's different than the left, you don't get a right to speak in public.
Wants to get men out of the women's prison. No. Women are being raped by men. You're fucking mentally ill. There's boys competing in girls' sports. I'm not mentally ill. Yes, you are. I don't care. That's not okay.
Keep walking. Let's get you to the ground.
What did that kid say? Wait, I didn't catch that.
Thank you.
Well, you are getting through to some people. So I thought that was, it's unbelievable. I mean, the way that they were coming after you there, and they're calling that a peaceful protest.
Right.
Yeah. Oh.
I just wanted to make the point that these students actually don't know anything about First Amendment rights. They don't really know anything about protesting. The schools don't have their safety in mind. If these kids want to protest, they can do it, during off school hours, right? When they could do it with their parents or at least not have the schools be responsible, because if that had been a field trip, they would have had 10 times more, parent chaperones or adults helping out. But, oh no, we're going to march, 600 kids down, 10 blocks to go into a park to, and I mean, I'm just unfortunately a middle-aged lady with my little sign, but it could have been really dangerous, right? So
yes. We showed a video in the last show of something in was it Aurora, Illinois, and there's one guy who showed up with a Trump sign, kind of like you had one there, and it got violent. I mean, they chased him, and he had to go hide in a building, and it was in front of City Hall, and no police stopped it, right? So I mean, it was just some of the parents that rushed the guy into the bank, and I don't think it's because they like the guy. I think it's because they didn't want their kids winding up in jail.
Right.
So it's just absolutely nuts what's going on in some of these schools. So
I didn't. The police department in Winters asked, if I wanted to file, a criminal report against the kids who were throwing bottles and cans at my head. And, the one child who's who stole my sign, but I said I don't want any of these students actually to be in trouble. It is the adults, the school superintendent, the school principals. You know, they are the ones that told these kids that this was a good idea to do during their school time, and they should 100% be responsible for what happened. So yeah, it's
without a doubt, because you just said that these kids don't know anything about free speech rights.
They don't.
You said something along those lines. The truth of the matter is nobody is teaching them about free speech. The only thing they're getting is a propaganda in the schools that tells them that, you know what, everybody have to agree with you, or something is wrong with that person, or speech may be triggering. Nobody tells them that everyone has a right to speak freely, just like they do. Yes. That is not being conveyed at all. So yeah, they don't know anything about free speech because no one is teaching them about free speech.
Nope. They're learning there's hate speech, right? I'm sure they thought my sign was hate speech.
Exactly.
And that the teachers would be happy that they were taking the sign away from me, right? So, yeah, the teachers, they love it when they hold up signs that say, you know, Trump is a pendejo, or, you know, F ICE or whatever, you know, that kind of speech is okay. But my signs,
they'll let them have class time to make those signs.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Of course.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, it's funny. I mean, we've talked about this a little before. You'd think a decent school in the spirit of John Stuart Mill would, you know, essentially use these issues that are hard issues for society to deal with to have rich debate on campus, to have rich and respectful debate, not to have the kids turn into an angry mob and unleash them on the street. That is nuts, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and none of it's organic. There's no chance in the world that all these students around California around the same time came up with these same ideas to do these same kind of protests, right?
Right.
You know, there's obviously something with the teachers union or, you know, teacher groups that are kind of encouraging this, you know, and it looks like it's usually girls that are kind of the leaders that are making the signs in the front of the line, you know, because they're easier to more malleable, you know, to get them to say, oh, this is the kind thing to do, is to say, you know, anti-ICE kind of, you know, whatever the message is.
Yes. It's funny too, because that was the trend I was hearing about as well with some of this trans ideology that a long time ago, it used to be sort of a grown men type of issue, and now it's become much more of a young girl type of issue.
Right.
And yet government wasn't pushing it when it was a grown man.
No.
But now the government is involved, suddenly it's like a cancer that's infecting the minds of the kids. So yeah, it's just nuts. But well, you know, gosh, Beth, I mean, thanks so much for coming on the show. I'd love to talk to you more, but we're pushing up on the time. But this has been really great. And I didn't know if you had any last thoughts you'd like to share. I want to pull up your web pages again real quick here. You can find
yeah, I think I would just say to anybody who's, you know, if you're in a school district or you'd like to speak out and maybe you're afraid to, you know, reach out to me and I'll come to your school board and you know, if you don't want to be there in person to do it, just let me know what you want to say. And I'm happy to go there, because, you know, the public can speak at any school board. You don't have to have a kid in the school district or live in that school district. You can go to any public meeting in California and speak. So I can either help you write something, or I'm happy to speak there representing, you know, all sane people, you know. Yeah.
Well, Beth, you're definitely full of energy and full of ideas. So, you know, when you you know, have some more you know, I guess instances of pushing back on some of this terrible government stuff, let us know, and we'd love to have you back to talk about it some more. But thanks so much again for coming on the show. And if you're watching this and you're, you know, think about what you can do before the next show to push back in your community. I mean, coming after our liberty, and unless, you know, everybody gets up and does something, they may succeed. So, we've seen how this craziness is just infested the schools, and anybody who understands really needs to step up now, because otherwise we're going to lose it. So thanks so much for joining us, and until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.